All right, guys, I wanted to get on today and give you some of my unfiltered opinion on Elizabeth Warren. And I've been following her for quite some time now, unfortunately. All right. And why I say unfortunately is because it's hard for me to even cover stuff on her, because after I watch her videos of her yelling and screaming and she's mad, she's not well composed. She's almost having like a breakdown on every single video that she records. At least that's the way it seems to me. I just can't even, I can't film a video and give commentary about what she's saying because she just gets on my damn nerves so much, right? But I figured I would take a short opportunity today to talk about Elizabeth Warren. Now, I will tell you, I think that a lot of the psychology behind this, I mean, as soon as Trump got into office, she just started firing off video after video after video with this absolutely crazy rhetoric. And in my opinion, she's really doing a disservice to the Democratic Party. I understand there's a side of like advocacy for what you believe in. However, there's this other twisted side that I think that she shows on camera. Again, this is my opinion. It's hard for me to watch her, right? But anyway, there was just a report published, and David Sachs, who is President Trump's, somewhat cryptocurrency czar, if you want to call him that, he made a claim, a bold claim, that Elizabeth Warren was potentially in control of the Autopen. Now, as you know, presidents in the past have used the Autopen. This is not something that is outside of the realm of reason. It does happen, and I'm sure there are people that could potentially sign on the president's behalf. However, he is saying that she was in control for it some time. Now, this kind of, in my opinion, correlates a little bit to her absolutely crazy rhetoric that she just kept on getting on camera and just spewing out this nonsense, right? And the reason that I'm correlating these two things is because, some people that are in a position to complain the loudest are normally also in a simultaneous position where they did something that may or may not be, well, let's say legal, okay? And I'm not accusing her of doing anything illegal. I'm just saying that it's very strange the way these events are playing out. On top of that, when you think about it, I mean, we all sat through the Biden administration. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It was like living in an alternate reality. And this guy, he was in office for so damn long, and some of the decisions that he was making, I would feel like somebody from his generation would be a little bit more reserved and a little bit more conservative. But as you know, it seemed like a lot of the decisions that were being made during his administration were just overtly progressive. And just for instance, okay, when we found out that this guy was pretty much mentally checked out, right? In a lot of the videos that we've seen, we all knew this was going on. The news was essentially covering for him. This is a bigger story than what people are making it out to be. And I'm not trying to make this entire video about that. I could do a whole entirely other video about this because I know quite a bit about it. But the fact is, when it comes to like some levels of competency, I think that for all intents and purposes, I think that people behind the scenes knew. And I also think there's a probability of him getting taken advantage of to some point. And I'm not giving any credit. I'm not saying that if he was more mentally well or mentally stable, that things would have got significantly better. However, I am starting to, this is just my, again, unfiltered thoughts here. I am starting to think along the lines of like, was this guy taken advantage of? And, this is something that a lot of, I feel like the news, legacy media, mainstream media is not necessarily, they did a little bit of coverage on it, but now they're kind of downplaying that issue. And if he was taken advantage of, and Elizabeth Warren was one of these people that did take advantage of him and or the Autopen, this is a extremely, extremely bad look. And I just want to share an article with you. And if they have anything to play in here, I will. So somebody sent me this article this morning. And it says, MAGA rages as Trump aide accuses Dems controlling Biden's Autopen. The Autopen conspiracy, which claims Joe Biden was not calling the shots during his presidency, has a new bizarre twist. And it goes on to say, MAGA is raging online after President Donald Trump's crypto czar accused a senator of being behind the Autopen conspiracy, which alleges Joe Biden did not call the shots during his presidency. Now, again, I will tell you that there is, I think there's like a 75 to maybe 85% probability that he perhaps did not know what some people were signing. Okay. I think that given all of the data and all of the circumstances, and again, I could put something more thorough together in regards to this. I think that all arrows point to the same direction. Okay. The White House crypto and AI czar David Sachs told Fox News on Tuesday that Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren controlled the Autopen during that administration. Now, how much control, how little control, that's up for debate, right? But could it have happened? I think there is a probability of something like this happening. Okay. Biden, 82, has been open about his use of an Autopen during his presidency, having utilized the device to make signatures since 2021, the first term, during his first year of his term. Again, this is not an uncommon thing to happen. The MAGA conspiracy regarding device centers on whether Biden was aware of its use during that time, with Trump himself pushing the conspiracy that he was not. Right-wing figures claim Biden's mental capacity deteriorated so much that other Democrats used his Autopen without his knowledge to push their agenda. So the only way to really figure this out, realistically, you really have to go back in time. And I understand that people could change, what they believe in and what they stand for. But I mean, Biden, 82 years old, a lot of people that are up in age, like they're very hard to convince one way or the other, right? Like I'll just call it like it is. I'm not scared to do that. And what I mean by that is, there's a high probability that if somebody goes digging in the archives, and I have done some of this, if somebody goes digging in the archives, you could see how radical or how rational somebody is. And I'm not claiming Biden was one or the other. I'm just claiming the fact that a lot of this doesn't add up. Okay, it doesn't add up, meaning that while this potentially is, like, let's say, a conspiracy, I don't necessarily think that. I think there's a higher likelihood that parts of this conspiracy is somewhat true, if that makes sense. Right-wing figures claim Biden's mental capacity deteriorated so much that other Democrats used the Autopen without knowledge to push their agenda. I already read that, but I wanted to read it one more time. Sachs' remarks to Jesse Waters in primetime on Fox News sent those right-wing theories into overdrive, despite Sachs providing no proof to back up his claim. So, usually what happens here is that in order to provide some substantial proof, anything in the regards of something this major, this is going to probably take months, if not years, in order to figure out. Okay. But by him saying this on primetime television, you don't just come out and say things like this without absolutely no liability, right? Like that's the key here. So I think in terms of a liability standpoint, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think if there was absolutely no truth to this, that he would have not said this at all. Furthermore, I think that if this was that bad, meaning that he made a claim that is completely unsubstantiated and completely false, I would also think that Elizabeth Warren, and at least to my knowledge, I don't think she's even commented on this. And this reminds me, I just want to bring you back for a second here. This also reminds me of the time that Mayor Michelle Wu, Boston's mayor, potentially got money somewhat through the CCP, right? The Chinese Communist Party. And she did not make any comments. She didn't make any quotes about that. So, like, by somebody not saying anything at all, they're kind of saying everything. That's my opinion. Could I be 100% completely wrong? yes, there's a possibility of that. And I hope that's the case here, to be honest with you, because if they find out in the future that this Autopen situation is substantially worse than what we even know on a surface level, like, it's just bad, right? It's just a bad look, okay? All right, Infowars founder Alex Jones, who loves spreading baseless conspiracies, cost him his media company, was among who seized on the comment. The fake Pocahontas was using the Autopen he posted, referring to Warren. This is a coup against the American voter. Another viral post with 6,000 likes went so far as to claim that Warren, 75, must stand trial for her alleged involvement. Easiest way to tell that the allegations of Elizabeth Warren being in charge of the Autopen is when she... Oh, there you go. Okay, so this person said exactly what I believe me, I promise you 110% I did not read this. I just knew that there was a video on top, so I put on my headphones just in case I wanted to watch it. Again, easiest way to tell that the allegations of Elizabeth Warren being in charge of the Autopen is when she doesn't dispute them. The post read, Elizabeth Warren must stand trial. This is treason 100%. So again, when you're not... I mean, look, not everybody, like, I don't go into my comment section and try to disprove everybody that has a, like, somewhat negative comment about me, because I just don't have the time to do that. But this is a much larger scale issue and a much more larger public facing figure. So it is very strange that she didn't do it. Okay. The account MAGA Voice received nearly 9,000 likes on a post that read she should be thrown in prison for that. Lock her up. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to this really briefly and see what he said and his demeanor. I'm just very curious of this.
What the Biden administration was doing.
Let's see. Hang on one second, guys. Okay.
What the Biden administration was doing, and let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the Autopen during that administration.
I mean, he goes like there's absolutely no hesitation.
Let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the Autopen during that administration. She, for some reason, has this pathological hatred of the crypto community. She wants to drive this community offshore. She doesn't want it happening in the United States. That's the wrong policy for the United States. We want all the innovation happening here. This is a financial system of the future. It's cheap.
I mean, for him to just come out and say this and have it be completely fabricated, there is obviously a probability of that. There is a chance of something like that. But I don't think what he is saying is, given the circumstances, that is completely off based, right? I really don't think so. And at the rate of which he's speaking, you know, unless this is something that he had predetermined and he's been thinking about this a long time, or this is something that has been talked about regularly, that's kind of the way that I'm reading into this, is that this has potentially been something that has been talked about before. Now, whether or not that's substantiated or not, who's to tell, right? We won't find that out for quite some time. So either A, this is something that's been in the know in the back end for quite some time. Now they're bringing it out into the front end. But I don't think he's just making it up on the fly. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, just the way he's saying
Let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the Autopen during that.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, the semantics of it and everything, it could be one or the other, right? But I'm leaning more into the direction that there is a possibility of this happening. Chuck Callisto said Warren was busted. He shared the Fox News clip and asked his nearly 1 million ex-followers, if this is true, what should Elizabeth Warren's punishment be? Warren's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Daily Beast. She has not publicly addressed Sachs' accusation. Sachs, who undermined White House messaging over the weekend regarding Medicaid cuts, later clarified on X that Warren controlled the Biden Autopen only on matters. So he's specifying it only on matters that related to crypto. Now, obviously, this guy could be saying these things because it may be in his best interest. Like, I'm trying to be as fair as humanly possible here, right? He could be saying these things to make his agenda look potentially better. And this could have been a pre-theorized thought that they have been talking about to try to push some level of a narrative. But again, given the way things are going and the way information is coming out, Biden's cancer diagnosis to the media, constantly backing him up and that he's, as sharp as a tack and whatever, I don't know what to believe. And that's one of the hardest things about what I do sometimes is like, I know I'm being critical of this and I know I'm giving more favor to this being a potential reality. But the fact is like, when there, again, is so many arrows heading in the same direction and there's so much corruption on the back end that is slowly trickling its way through, how could this not potentially be a possibility? He also toned his definitive accusation down, claiming it was just my theory. My theory is that multiple people controlled that Autopen. Depending on what the issue was, he wrote. On crypto, Warren controlled the Autopen. So he has a theory. Now, again, claiming this must have been, he also toned his definitive accusation down, claiming it was just my theory. Well, again, my opinion on that theory is that he came out with that theory very, very quickly, right? It was spot on the point. I don't think it was premeditated during him actually speaking. So it makes me feel like, unless this is like, again, something behind the scenes that they're constantly talking about where, okay, this Democrat controlled this Democrat controlled that, and in order to try to paint a narrative, there is also the possibility of that too. But again, for him to just come out and say it and then just say it's a theory, I think there is some potential evidence that lean in the direction of this theory having some, let's say, substance, right? Multiple U.S. presidents have used the Autopen, including President Barack Obama. Trump first spread the Biden Autopen conspiracy in March when he claimed in a late-night post to Truth Social that his predecessor's presidential pardons should be nullified because they were issued during the use of an Autopen without his knowledge. Again, this can be just completely... at least that could be completely fabricated. This must be no credible proof has backed up Trump's claim, but his sycophants in Congress are making sure the conspiracy is thoroughly looked into. Yeah, I think don't rule out Hunter Biden. So again, I think that when it comes to this Autopen situation, I think that there is a high probability of something going on here. Otherwise, it wouldn't be talked about at all. And I recently watched a video on MSN with the Democrats, rallying and spending $20 million to try to capture the younger male voter at some luxury hotel, right? And like, the more you read these things, like, it's just unbelievable. Like, they're trying to capture the working class male population at a luxury hotel spending $20 million. Is that really how you capture the younger generation, young male generation? I don't think so. Absolutely not. They're just not speaking their language. Everything that they've done, the Democrats, everything that they've done in the past has been like, anti, let's say, white men. Let's just call it what it is, right? And they're doing things that is just damaging their credibility. And the fact is like, not only are they damaging their credibility personally, like Elizabeth Warren when she gets on her tirades, or like Ed Markey when he gets on his tirades, or whatever it may be. But again, the fact of the matter here is I think there is something going on, kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not trying to, buy into these conspiracy theories, but a couple people were emailing on this and asking my opinion and also texting me. So I figured I would cover it. So I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I would say it's more in the vicinity of higher than 50% that there is a probability that they did or potentially used it. And again, I think that's because Biden was basically like mentally AFK. He was really, really checked out. It's a really sad situation, to be honest with you. You got to look at it this way. And I'm trying to be fair here. If this guy did not know things were happening behind the scenes and all of a sudden these policies were passed and they already passed, and then he finds out and then he has to get up and talk about stuff that he didn't even necessarily know about, and now he has to be supportive of that because people were abusing the Autopen or whatever it may be. I think it's an absolutely crazy story. But I also think that just look at them covering up his cancer diagnosis, which on one hand is, it's a problem. Okay. I was going to try to give it some of the benefit of the doubt, but the more that I think about it, it is a problem if people didn't come forward and at least say something about it. And then they try to rerun the guy. I mean, just everything that has happened in the last couple years, it really makes me, and I think the American people, question about what is going on in this country. I had this conversation with, I can't remember if it was my wife or a colleague the other day. I think it was my wife. And, I basically said, like, the more you read into these things, the more unbelievable they seem, right? The more stuff comes out, the more and more unbelievable. And it like a lot of this stuff, regardless of this, is like somewhat true, right? Or definitely true. And, all of the above is that I don't discredit anything anymore, because a lot of these things that were once a conspiracy theory ended up being true. Another good one, just on memory, was back in October or November of 24, Trump had a claim that the news absolutely shredded him for, where New York took X amount of dollars, it was like 60 some million dollars from FEMA, to funnel that money into the migrant shelters. And everybody discredited that claim. Now, I don't know how he even knew this bit of information, but it ended up being true, right? It ended up being true. So again, I'm going to look more into this, of course, but overall, I would say that there is definitely a probability of something going on here. And I'm sure that some of the loudest people in the room are the ones that are potentially committing some levels of disruption or some levels of an agenda for what they believe. And I think that I don't think that it's unlikely that, and again, this is all a speculation at this point, but I don't find it that unlikely. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that or disagree. I just wanted to give my overall opinion. And yeah, I'm just trying to call it like I see it. So I covered the article for you guys. Hope I made some sense here. That's it for today's video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.